My accountant stole $312,418 from me, then stood in my kitchen holding my mother's old mixing bowl and asked if I could loan her $8,000 for a family emergency. The oven was chiming behind her, my hands were dusted with flour, and my business account had exactly $14.62 left. She smiled like she hadn't spent 6 years quietly draining the life out of everything I built. My name is Elena Marquez, I'm 41, and I own Marquez and Honey, a small bakery and catering company in Fort Collins, Colorado. I started it in 2016 with $22,000 from my savings, my grandmother's tres leches recipe, and a used delivery van that rattled every time it went over 50. By 2023, we had 12 employees, 2 ovens that ran almost non-stop, and contracts with 3 local hotels. We weren't rich, but we were steady. On a good month, we brought in around $68,000 in gross revenue. My accountant, Pamela Pam Grayson, was 53, polished, always smelling like lavender lotion and peppermint gum. She had silver blonde hair cut into a perfect bob and carried a navy leather planner like it contained national secrets. Pam wasn't just some professional I hired online. She had known my family since I was in middle school. She did my parents' taxes, brought casseroles when my father passed, and sat in the second row at my bakery's ribbon cutting. "Numbers are my love language," she used to say, tapping her calculator with a red-painted fingernail. I trusted her completely. She had access to payroll, vendor payments, tax filings, QuickBooks, and both business accounts at Front Range Community Bank. Every Friday, I'd hand her invoices and receipts in a yellow folder, and she'd say, "Go bake something beautiful, Elena. I'll handle the boring part." For years, that sounded like love. Later, it sounded like a warning I was too grateful to hear. The first strange thing happened on March 15, 2021. I remember because I was boxing lemon tarts for a spring wedding when my card declined at Restaurant Depot for a $487 supply run. The cashier looked embarrassed. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the smell of cardboard and onions suddenly made my stomach roll. Pam answered on the second ring. "Probably a bank hold," she said lightly. "You know how they are with business accounts." 2 days later, it was fixed. She sent me a screenshot showing a transfer delay and told me not to worry. So I didn't. Then vendors started calling. In August 2022, our butter supplier, Halvorsen Dairy, said we were 60 days late on $6,240. Pam swore the check had been mailed. "Postal mess," she said. "I'll stop payment and reissue." In January 2023, I noticed QuickBooks showed a monthly consulting fee of $2,850 to a company called Peak Ledger Solutions. Pam said it was a bookkeeping software integration. "It saves you money, actually," she told me. "You'd be lost without it." I laughed because I believed her. That laugh still makes my face burn when I think about it. The discovery happened on Friday, October 6, 2023, at 7:18 a.m. I was alone in the bakery, the front windows fogged from the ovens, the air warm with cinnamon and yeast. My assistant manager, Tasha Bell, had called in because her basement flooded, so I was handling the breakfast orders myself. My phone buzzed on the stainless steel prep table. It was an email from the Colorado Department of Revenue. Subject line, "Final notice, delinquent withholding taxes." My fingers went cold. I opened it with the edge of my thumb because suddenly my hands didn't feel like mine. The notice said we owed $74,903 in unpaid payroll taxes, penalties, and interest. I actually said out loud, "No. No, that's wrong." The mixer hummed behind me. A tray timer beeped. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I called Pam. She answered cheerfully. "Morning, sunshine." "Pam," I said, and my voice came out thin. "Why am I looking at a tax notice for $74,000? There was a pause. Not long, maybe 3 seconds. But in that 3 seconds, the bakery seemed to shrink around me. "Oh, Elena," she said. "Those notices are automated. Ignore it. It says final notice. Forward it to me. I'll handle it." "No," I said, surprising myself. "I'm calling them." Her voice sharpened. "Elena, don't make this messy. You don't understand how these systems work." That was the first time she sounded afraid. I called the state from the bakery office, sitting under the humming old ceiling fan with a pen shaking between my fingers. The woman on the phone, Ms. Dempsey, was kind but firm. She confirmed payments had not been made for 11 quarters. "That can't be right," I whispered. "My accountant files everything." "I'm looking at your account now," she said. Several returns were filed, but the funds were not remitted. Some forms were amended later by your authorized representative. My authorized representative is Pamela Grayson. There was typing. A long pause. Then Ms. Dempsey said, "Ms. Marquez, I strongly recommend you review your banking records immediately." The room tilted. I logged into the bank portal for the first time in months without going through Pam's monthly reports. I still remember the smell of burnt sugar because I'd forgotten a tray of caramel rolls in the oven. On the screen, line after line appeared: transfers to Peak Ledger Solutions, transfers to PG Consulting, electronic checks to numbers I didn't recognize. My mouth went dry. I clicked one image. The signature looked like mine. It wasn't mine. By noon, I was sitting in a conference room at Front Range Community Bank with the branch manager, Devin Price, a serious man in a gray suit. He slid printed statements across the table. The paper felt too smooth under my trembling fingers. "There are recurring transfers," he said. "They started in June 2018. 2018? I asked. He nodded. "Small at first. 900 here, 1200 there. Then larger." I stared at one transfer for $11,500 labeled Equipment Reserve. Devin said, "Ms. Marquez, did you authorize Pamela Grayson as a signer on your secondary account?" "No. She had viewing access. Not signing access." His jaw tightened. "We'll need to investigate that." That was layer 1. Layer 2 arrived 20 minutes later when Devin showed me a scanned document adding Pam as an authorized signer. It had my signature and a notarization stamp. The notary was Pam's sister, Linda Vale. "I was in Santa Fe that date," I said. "For my cousin's wedding. I have photos." Devin looked up slowly. Then came the third layer, the one that made my chest feel hollow. Pam had opened a business credit line in my company's name for $95,000. The mailing address had been changed to a P.O. box on Harmony Road. Statements never came to me. Payments were made just often enough to keep it from defaulting, using my own stolen money. I went home that night with a box of bank records on the passenger seat. The pages rustled every time I turned a corner, like they were whispering. I sat at my kitchen table until 2:40 a.m., highlighting transactions with a yellow marker until my eyes burned. Peak Ledger Solutions wasn't software. It was an LLC registered to Pam's husband, Gerald Grayson, a retired real estate agent. Then I found the lake house. A property search showed Gerald and Pamela Grayson had purchased a cabin near Grand Lake in April 2022 for $289,000. The down payment was $62,000. 3 days before that payment, $62,000 had left my business savings account marked Tax Escrow Transfer. I pressed my hand over my mouth. My phone buzzed. A text from Pam: "Please don't panic. We can talk Monday. I care about you." I stared at the message until the words blurred. Then I typed back, "Did you steal from me?" 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, you're upset. Don't say things you can't take back. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. For 2 weeks, I moved through the bakery like a ghost in a hairnet. The scent of vanilla made me nauseous. I lost 9 pounds because every bite felt like cardboard. My employees laughed in the kitchen, pans clanged, customers smiled over coffee, and I stood behind the counter wondering how I had been so blind. At 3 a.m., I'd lie on my back and stare at the ceiling fan turning in slow circles. Shame sat on my ribs like a heavy stone. I kept hearing Pam's voice, "Go bake something beautiful. I'll handle the boring part." My mother, Rosa, came over one Sunday with chicken soup and found me sitting on the laundry room floor surrounded by statements. "Mija," she said softly, kneeling beside me. "You look like you've been carrying a refrigerator." I trusted her, I said. My mother picked up one page, her face hardening. "Then stop carrying shame that belongs to her." The turning point came on October 23rd, in the most unexpected place, Instagram. I was scrolling at 4:12 a.m., numb and hollow, when Pam's daughter posted photos from the Grand Lake cabin. There was Pam on the deck in a cream sweater, holding a mug, smiling at the mountains. The caption read, "Mom's dream finally came true. So proud of everything she built." Everything she built. My fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. Heat rose from my chest to my face. I sat up in bed and said to the empty room, "No." She built it with my ovens, my payroll, my mother's recipes, and my employees' rent money. By sunrise, I wasn't crying anymore. I was making a list. My first call was to a forensic accountant named Marisol Chen in Denver, recommended by Devin at the bank. She was 48, calm, and terrifyingly precise. Her office smelled like coffee and printer toner, and she wore black-framed glasses that made her look like she could see through walls. "I don't want revenge that gets me in trouble," I told her. Marisol clicked her pen. "Good. We'll use documents." Documents are louder than shouting. Next came attorney James Whitaker, a civil litigation lawyer with a neat beard and zero patience for excuses. He told me to stop communicating with Pam except in writing. "We need preservation letters," he said. "Bank records, emails, payroll filings, QuickBooks audit logs. If she altered anything, we'll know." Tasha became my inside witness. She admitted Pam had once asked her to scan blank company checks to update vendor files. Tasha had felt uneasy and saved the email. "I thought I was being paranoid," she said, eyes wide. "You saved me," I told her. We set the trap carefully. James drafted a letter requesting a routine year-end financial review and asked Pam to come to the bakery on November 14th with original ledgers, bank reconciliation reports, tax payment confirmations, and vendor files. Meanwhile, Marisol mirrored my QuickBooks database and found deleted entries hidden in the audit trail. Devin froze questionable access and flagged the P.O. box. Then twist number 2 landed. Pam's sister Linda, the notary, called me from a blocked number. "I didn't know what she used it for," Linda whispered. "Pam said you forgot to sign a bank form." "Linda," I said, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles ached, "did you notarize my signature when I wasn't there?" Silence. Then she said, "Yes." And I had the email where she asked me. On November 14th, the bakery smelled like espresso and orange zest, but my stomach was tight as wire. Pam arrived at 9:03 a.m. in a camel coat, carrying her navy planner and a white bakery box. "I brought almond croissants," she said, too brightly. Tasha looked at me from behind the counter. I gave the smallest nod. Pam followed me into the office, where James Whitaker sat at my desk with a legal pad. Marisol sat beside him with a laptop. Devin Price was on speakerphone. Pam stopped so suddenly the bakery box tilted in her hands. "What is this?" she asked. A financial review, I said. Her smile flickered. Elena, this feels hostile. James stood. Mrs. Grayson, I'm Elena's attorney. Please have a seat. I don't need to sit. Marisol opened the laptop. You might want to. Pam's eyes darted to the door. For one wild second, I thought she might leave. Then Tasha stepped into the hallway holding a folder. Pam looked at her and snapped, You have no idea what you're involved in. Tasha's voice trembled but held. I know you asked me to scan blank checks. Pam's face drained of color. We didn't accuse her wildly. That was the beauty of it. We let the record speak. Marisol displayed the first transfer, $1,200 to Peak Ledger Solutions, June 8, 2018. Then the next. Then dozens more. The printer on the shelf hummed as James produced copies of forged checks, altered tax records, the credit line application, the P.O. box change, Linda's email, and the Grand Lake deed. Pam sat rigid, her peppermint gum scent suddenly sharp in the small room. I said, You came into my kitchen and asked me for a loan while my account had $14 in it. Her lips parted. I was going to fix it. By stealing more? I borrowed, she said. The business was growing. You weren't using the reserves. The room went silent. Even the ovens outside seemed quieter. I leaned forward. My hands were no longer shaking. My employees were using those reserves. My taxes were using those reserves. My future was using those reserves. James slid a document across the table. This is a demand for full restitution. We are also referring the matter to law enforcement, the state tax authorities, the bank fraud department, and the board overseeing your professional license. Pam's eyes filled, but not with the kind of tears that moved me. They were cornered tears. Elena, she whispered, think of my family. I looked at the woman who had watched my mother cry at my father's funeral, who had eaten birthday cake in my bakery, who had smiled at me with stolen money under her fingernails. I did, I said. For 6 years, you didn't think of mine. The climax didn't happen in my bakery. It happened 3 months later, on February 19, 2024, in a Larimer County courtroom with wooden benches that smelled faintly of polish and winter coats. Pam had tried to deny everything until Linda turned over the email chain and Gerald admitted Peak Ledger Solutions had no clients except payments from my company. The prosecutor laid out the pattern in a voice so calm it felt surgical. Pam sat at the defense table in a gray blazer, smaller somehow, her perfect bob grown uneven at the ends. When the judge read the charges and the restitution agreement, Gerald stared at the floor. Linda sat 2 rows behind them, pale and silent. The judge said, Mrs. Grayson, this was not a single mistake. This was a sustained breach of trust. Pam turned once and looked at me. I expected hatred. I expected pleading. Instead, she looked empty, like the mask had finally fallen and there was nothing underneath it. After the hearing, in the hallway, she tried one last time. Elena, she said, voice cracking, please tell them I helped you build that business. The old me might have softened. The old me might have remembered casseroles and lavender lotion. I stood with my attorney on one side and my mother on the other. No, I said. You helped yourself to it. That sentence landed harder than any shouting could have. Her shoulders folded. A courthouse employee called her name, and she walked away into the consequences she had earned. The aftermath was brutally satisfying. Pam lost her accounting license. She was ordered to pay restitution, and the Grand Lake cabin was sold to cover a huge portion of it. Gerald's LLC was dissolved. Linda lost her notary commission and cooperated to avoid harsher consequences. Pam's church bookkeeping clients left within a week after the public record spread through town. The woman who once lectured me about responsibility became the example people whispered about in grocery store aisles. The bank reversed certain unauthorized fees, my attorney negotiated a payment plan with the state, and Marisol helped rebuild my books from the ground up. Insurance covered part of the loss after the fraud investigation concluded. By September 2024, Marquez and Honey was not only stable, we were stronger. I promoted Tasha to operations manager with a $12,000 raise. We landed a catering contract with Colorado State University worth $146,000 a year. I also moved my office desk from the back corner to a glass-walled room overlooking the kitchen. Not because I distrust everyone now, but because I learned visibility is not cruelty. It is protection. Last month, I stood in that kitchen at 5:30 a.m., watching my team pull trays of honey biscuits from the oven. The windows glowed blue with early snowlight, and the whole bakery smelled like butter, coffee, and second chances. My mother was at a corner table folding napkins even though I told her she didn't have to. Tasha was laughing with the new bookkeeper, a sharp woman named Priya who sends me weekly reports I actually read. Pam took money, time, and peace from me. But she did not take my name. She did not take my business. She did not take the hands that built it or the people who stood beside me when the truth came out. Now every invoice is checked, every account has dual approval, and every quarter I sign my own tax forms with a steady hand. I sleep through the night. I eat my own pastries again. And when customers ask why the bakery feels brighter lately, I just smile. Because betrayal taught